Tell me, how long are you going to let something external take control of your inner state, your calm, your peace of mind? A cold stare, a rude comment, a delay that drags on, and your heart goes to war. You say, "They made me lose my cool." But the truth is, you handed them the key. Calm isn't shattered from the outside, it's abandoned from within. Today I'm going to show you how Stoicism can help you bring your mind under control. In this video, you'll discover how to stay calm, even in the middle of the fire. This isn't about pretending nothing affects you. It's about learning how to hold yourself up when the world tries to push you over the edge. Today, you'll learn what to do when someone's trying to push your buttons, how to breathe when tension rises, and how to find your center again, even after you've lost it. Serenity isn't luck, and it's not a gift. It's a decision. One you train, strengthen, and protect like an inner treasure. My friend, today you reprogram your mind so that calm never leaves you. Whether you're stuck in traffic, at work, or listening to me while meditating, stay until the end. Because what I'm about to share with you changes you from the inside, so your reality can finally start to change on the outside too. But before we begin, if you find value in this kind of video, subscribe so they keep showing up on your YouTube homepage every day, and we can keep moving forward together. Let's begin. 1. Save your energy for what really matters. Do you know what the most common way to lose your peace is? Wasting your energy on battles that don't matter. On arguments you'll have forgotten an hour later. On fights that leave a bitter taste and no real lesson. And the worst part is, sometimes you don't even notice. You're right there, caught in some pointless argument in the middle of traffic, yelling things no one hears, because they already rolled up their window. Or arguing over messages with someone on social media you don't know and will never meet. Or picking a fight with your neighbor because they didn't put the trash out right. And meanwhile, your child is waiting to play with you. Your partner needs you to listen. That important project of yours is still sitting there, untouched. Because every minute you give to the trivial is a minute you steal from what truly deserves your attention. The Stoics knew this well. Cleanthes, one of the early leaders of Stoicism, worked nights hauling water so he could study philosophy during the day. And every morning, a drunk would shout insults at him as he crossed the square. He'd yell, mock him, humiliate him. But Cleanthes never reacted. He just kept walking, eyes forward. And when someone asked him why he didn't respond, he said something that should be carved in stone. "Don't interrupt my silence. It's worth more than your shouting." That's the key right there. He understood something most people take a lifetime to learn. Giving words to a useless fight is losing them for what really matters. His mind, his calm, his purpose. Marcus Aurelius lived it too. Emperor of Rome, surrounded by traitors, corrupt politicians, and conspirators. Imagine how many chances he had to jump into empty arguments. But he chose something else. He wrote it down with brutal clarity. Avoid futile disputes. They pull the soul off its path. And this thing you're hearing now while you work or go for a walk is the reminder you need. Every minute you waste on what doesn't matter is a minute lost from what truly does. Think about it. How many minutes have you thrown away in arguments that led nowhere? How much energy have you wasted fighting over nonsense you didn't even remember the next day? Marcus Aurelius knew it well. Every minute spent in a useless fight is a minute stolen from your true mission. And he didn't just say it, he lived it. When politicians attacked him, he didn't respond with insults. When people gossiped behind his back, he didn't bother explaining himself. He responded with facts, with action, with dignified silence. Because he knew that every time he let himself be pulled into that noise, he was drifting away from his center. So, what do you do when someone tries to drag you into a pointless argument? When that co-worker throws passive-aggressive comments at you? When that family member picks a fight at Christmas dinner? When some stranger at the supermarket blames you for something you didn't do? The first step is to stop and ask yourself, with brutal honesty, what do I gain from this? Don't answer automatically. Really stop and ask, if I step into this fight, what am I going to get out of it? Because if the answer is nothing but a rise in blood pressure, then you already have your answer. Stay silent. That silence speaks too, and often it speaks louder than any shout. Then, break the pattern. Don't just stand there like a punching bag waiting for the next hit. Change the scene. Stand up. Move, even if it's just a couple of steps. Look out the window. Drink some water. Breathe. That small physical shift sends a signal to your brain. This isn't a threat. There's no war here, and when your body gets that message, your mind starts to relax too. And here's something that works better than you think. Calm as a weapon. That steady look that doesn't flinch, even when someone's yelling. You look at the person, nod slowly, maybe even smile if you can, and walk away without saying a word. That unexpected serenity disarms more conflict than any brilliant comeback. Because when someone expects fire and you give them ice, they run out of fuel. They don't know what to do with your calm. The Stoics called it active indifference. It's not that you don't care. It's that you choose not to give it power. You decide, consciously, that this person, this moment, this provocation doesn't deserve a second of your energy. Because your energy, my friend, is limited. It's not a bottomless well. Every day you have a set amount, and how you spend it defines the quality of your life. If you burn it all reacting to provocations, arguing online, getting tangled with people you don't even respect, what's left for what really matters? For your family, for your projects, for your peace? My friend, burn this truth into your mind. Not every battle is worth fighting. In fact, most of them aren't. So ask yourself right now, what pointless arguments are draining your energy? What fights could you walk away from today without losing a thing? Because believe me, when you start saving your energy for what really matters, everything changes. You stop feeling drained by nonsense. You stop coming home with your spirit wrinkled from conflicts that led nowhere. And you start to have space to think, to create, to enjoy what you have, to be present with the people you love. Because, my friend, every time you choose not to join the noise, every time you protect your calm instead of handing it over to just anyone, you get closer to mastering your reaction and staying centered in the middle of chaos. And that right there is how you move closer to the secret of never losing your calm again, with nothing and with no one. 2. Don't carry what isn't yours. Have you ever stopped to think about everything you're carrying on your shoulders that doesn't even belong to you? I'm not talking about physical stuff. I mean worries, guilt, responsibilities that were never yours, but you carry them around as if they had your name written on them. Your mother's anxiety about her surgery, your coworker's stress because he can't make it to the end of the month, your cousin's toxic relationship she tells you about fight by fight on WhatsApp, your father's resentment toward his boss. Do you see it? You're dragging around other people's backpacks, while your own is being left behind, untouched, falling apart. And the worst part is, you often don't even notice. You think that's empathy, that it means being a good person. But my friend, there's a huge difference between walking alongside someone and getting lost in their path. The Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago, and they didn't sugarcoat it. Epictetus put it like this: divide the world into 2 categories, what depends on you and what doesn't. Your thoughts, your actions, your decisions, that's yours. But other people's choices, their reactions, their problems, that's not. And spending your energy trying to control the uncontrollable is the perfect recipe for suffering. Marcus Aurelius, with the entire weight of the Roman Empire on his shoulders, reminded himself of something fundamental every morning. His inner peace depended only on him. No one could steal it unless he opened the door. Not even the traitors plotting behind his back, not the generals challenging his authority, not even the plagues that swept through Rome. Because he knew his calm didn't come from what happened outside. It came from how he chose to respond from within. And Seneca put it in a powerful image. Trying to carry what doesn't belong to you is like pouring water into a bottomless basket. You can keep going forever, but it will never fill up. You'll just wear yourself out trying. Now think about this. You have a coworker who calls you every week to vent about his relationship. He's been in that relationship for years. He's been saying he's going to leave for years, crying on your shoulder for years, and you, of course, listen. You give advice. You even offered him your place to stay until things get clearer. But they never do, because every time he's about to make a decision, he goes back to her, and you're left with a knot in your stomach, going over his situation in your head like it's yours to solve. You lose sleep imagining ways he could get out. You cancel your plans because your friend needs to talk. You even feel guilty for enjoying yourself, because he's suffering. And then one day it hits you, he's still exactly the same. That's his default state. But you're exhausted. It's like someone tossed you a box full of rocks, and instead of saying, "This isn't mine," you open it and start putting the rocks in your pockets. Then you wonder why you're moving so slowly, why everything feels so heavy. It's because you're carrying weight that's not yours, my friend, and no one asked you to. You decided you were responsible for it. The savior role is seductive. It makes you feel important, needed, even noble. But it's a trap, because in the end, no one gets better, and you end up drained, frustrated, asking yourself why you're trying so hard if nothing changes. And often, they don't even thank you. What you're hearing right now, even if it's just playing in the background as you go about your day, is the reminder you need. You are not responsible for other people's problems. And pretending to be is arrogance disguised as kindness. So, what do you do when someone comes to unload their drama onto you? First, listen, without becoming the firefighter. You don't have to put out every fire. Sometimes people just need someone to be there, not someone to fix everything. And when you stop giving automatic solutions, you give them space to find their own. You hand back the power they didn't even realize they gave away. Second, set clear boundaries. It's not cruelty, it's sanity. If your sister calls you at midnight with the same story again, you can lovingly say, "I love you, but I can't keep going over this with you. You know how I feel." Now the decision is yours, and you hang up. Without guilt, because your peace is not up for negotiation. Third, offer resources, not your whole life. If someone needs professional help, give them a therapist's contact. But don't become their therapist. If they need money, point them to where they might find it. But don't go into debt for problems you didn't create. And fourth, always ask yourself, am I doing this out of love or out of guilt? Because if you're acting out of guilt, out of fear of being the bad guy, out of not knowing how to say no, then you're not helping. You're feeding a toxic dynamic that will eventually consume you. The Stoics were clear about it. Your first responsibility is to yourself, not from selfishness, but from coherence. Because if you collapse trying to hold everyone else up, who's left standing? No one. Just rubble. Marcus Aurelius wrote it without dressing it up. Let not the impressions carry you away. Hold fast to your center, and that means not letting other people's drama become your reality, not allowing their crisis to turn into your new normal. And even if you're hearing this while juggling a dozen other things, somewhere in your mind, a door is opening. The door that reminds you, it's okay to let go. You are not responsible for saving anyone. Your calm matters just as much as theirs. Because, my friend, if you don't learn to hand back what isn't yours, you'll end up lost in the maze of other people's lives. Your energy will drain. Your patience will run dry. And your peace, the peace you've worked so hard to build, will vanish before you even notice. But when you finally let go of the burdens that were never yours, when you learn to say, "This isn't mine," without feeling guilty, you'll discover something life-changing. Your calm returns to you. No one else holds the reins. You can breathe without carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. And right there, in that moment, you'll be one step closer to the secret of never losing your calm again, with nothing and with no one. 3. Learn to stop in time. Picture this. You're in the waiting room at the doctor's office on a Thursday afternoon. You've been waiting for over an hour, and your appointment should have been 40 minutes ago. Your kid calls, asking if you'll make it in time to pick him up from school. You promise you will, but deep down, you're not so sure. Suddenly, a woman bursts through the main door, speaks loudly to the receptionist, and walk straight into the consultation room without waiting in line. No one says a word. You look around, searching for someone who shares your frustration, but everyone's staring down at their phones. At first, you try to justify it. Maybe it's an emergency. But then she walks out 5 minutes later, laughing, prescription in hand, waving goodbye like nothing happened. And something lights up inside you. Your chest tightens, your hands start to tremble, your jaw clenches, and that voice, that damn inner voice, starts shouting, "Stand up! Say something, don't let her walk all over you." It's like someone lit a fuse and now you can't put it out. The heat climbs up your neck, your temples start to pound, and you feel like if you don't do something right now, you're going to explode. Your breathing gets faster, your fingers drum against the armrest, and in your head, you're already rehearsing the perfect speech, the one that'll leave her speechless, the one that'll make everyone in the room silently cheer for you. But right before you stand up, before those words come flying out of your mouth like bullets, I want you to pause for a second and ask yourself, how would Marcus Aurelius have handled this? Picture him, emperor of Rome, surrounded by traitors, flatterers, and schemers stepping over him every day. Do you think he blew up every time someone disrespected him? Number. He probably would have closed his eyes for a moment, breathed slowly, and reminded himself, "The world doesn't move according to my wishes." Getting angry about it only enslaves me, because Marcus Aurelius understood something vital that you and I often forget. In that tiny space between what happens to you and how you react, there lies all your freedom. You can choose to burn like gunpowder or stay still like stone. You can let that woman rob you of your peace, or you can remember that your calm is not for sale. Ah, my friend, I know what you're thinking. Sure, sounds nice in theory, but in the moment, it's impossible. And I get it. Because in that moment, with your blood boiling, self-control feels like a fantasy. But let me tell you something that completely changed my perspective. Lisa Feldman Barrett, a world-renowned neuroscientist, discovered something fascinating. She found that when you insert just a 2 or 3 second pause before reacting, your brain chemistry shifts. The adrenaline that was already gearing up for battle starts to fade. The parts of your brain responsible for rational thinking come back online. It's like that pause acts as an emergency brake that stops the train before it crashes. We're not talking about suppressing what you feel. We're talking about giving yourself a moment to choose how to respond. Because reacting is instinctive, automatic, animal. But responding? That's human. That's conscious. That's powerful. It's in that tiny space, in those seconds of inner silence, where you decide who you are. That's where you choose whether to be a slave to your impulses or the master of your destiny. So, do you want to try it? Here's the first step. When you feel like you're about to explode, count to 5. But don't do it like a robot. Do it with intention, with awareness. 1, turn your head away, break eye contact. 2, take a deep breath, fill your lungs like it's the last breath on earth. 3, ask yourself silently, will this really matter tomorrow? 4, feel your shoulders start to drop, your body beginning to understand there's no real threat. And 5, now decide clearly whether it's worth speaking, or if your energy is better saved for something that truly matters. That count isn't some magic trick, it's a lifeline. And it works even when everything inside you is screaming not to hold back, to say what you think, to let it all out. Now the second step, change your physical posture. Yeah, it sounds simple, almost silly, but it works. Drop your shoulders like you're taking off a heavy coat. Let your hands fall open, rest them on something solid. The edge of a table, the steering wheel, the back of a chair. That tiny action sends a direct message to your nervous system. We're safe. We can relax. And when your body calms down, your mind follows. It's like you're telling the primitive part of your brain, false alarm. There's no lion here. And finally, repeat this in your head like a mantra. This moment doesn't define me. Say it while looking out the window, while sipping some water, while breathing. Because when you repeat it, you strip the moment of its power. You tell the world, You don't decide how I feel. I do. That internal shift, invisible to everyone else, is what separates those who lash out on instinct from those who respond with calm. Learning to stop in time won't just save you from pointless arguments and awkward regrets. It will give you something far more valuable. The sense that you are in charge of your life. That no one, absolutely no one, can take your peace from you unless you hand it over. You become someone who doesn't get pulled into every cheap provocation. Because, my friend, every time you choose to stop in time, you're building an invisible wall around your calm. And every time you breathe before you speak, you take one step closer to the secret of never losing your calm again, with nothing and with no one. 4. Change the story you tell yourself. Have you noticed how two people can live through the same situation and walk away with completely opposite memories? That's not magic. It's the inner script each one chooses. And no one understood this better than Eddie Hillesum. In the 1940s in Amsterdam, a young Jewish woman named Eddie Hillesum was waiting her turn to be sent to a concentration camp. She sat on a wooden bench, back straight and hands clasped, while the morning cold seeped into her bones. Around her, the shuffle of boots on stone and the cries of other prisoners filled the air like a sad chorus. Some cursed quietly. Others kept asking why this was happening to them. Eddie, on the other hand, pulled a small notebook from her coat and began to write. People stared at her, surprised. What could she possibly be writing at a moment like that? She lifted her eyes for a moment, smiled with a sweetness that made no sense in the situation, and kept writing. On one of those pages, she left a line that still echoes today. They cannot take hold of my mind. I decide whether there is peace or chaos inside here. And that was the key. While everyone around her repeated the same story to themselves. We're victims, this is unfair, there's no way out. Eddie chose a different one. She rewrote the script she was telling herself. Instead of seeing only mud, she decided there was still a garden inside her. Instead of asking, why me, she asked, what can I do with what I have today? On that freezing bench between screams and tears, Eddie didn't let fear write her story. She snatched it back and wrote one that gave her calm. Because, my friend, the mind is like a film director with too many bad movies lying around. If you don't choose your script wisely, you end up starring in a drama you don't deserve. And you don't need to be in a concentration camp to understand this. Let me give you a more familiar scene. Your friend posts pictures on Instagram of a dinner you weren't invited to. You see them and suddenly feel a heat in your chest, like something piercing you. You think, of course. They left me out on purpose. They must not stand me. And you start going over every conversation, every gesture, searching for proof they excluded you on purpose. That night, while they laugh in the picture, you toss and turn in bed, imagining dialogues that never happened. But what if it was just a work dinner or something spontaneous? While you silently nurse your resentment, clenching your jaw and losing sleep, they're out laughing, never having thought of you that way at all. And there it is. You lost your calm over a movie you chose to play in your head. And right here is where you need to learn from what Seneca used to say. He explained it plainly. Suffering comes more from the opinions we form than from the situations we live. Because what makes you lose your calm isn't the picture, or the dinner, or your friends. It's the story your mind started writing the moment you saw the screen. You are not what was done to you. You are the version of the story you decide to believe. And that story, you choose it every time. That's why, if you want to get your peace back, you'll have to learn to change the script you tell yourself before that invented drama ends up devouring you. So how can you stop being the screenwriter of a drama you don't even want to watch? Do this. When you notice your mind starting to invent a disaster, write down the story you're telling yourself and read it out loud. You'll see it sounds more absurd than you thought. Then rewrite that story as if you were telling it to a friend. A real friend, the kind who helps you see things as they are, not as you imagine them. Ask yourself, what would he say if I told him this? And finally, practice telling yourself in a low voice, I don't know that yet. because leaving space for doubt is also a kind of calm. You can even make it fun. Next time you think everyone is against you because they didn't reply to your message, write it on a note and give it a movie title. The Conspiracy Against Me, Part 2. Then read it out loud. You'll laugh at how ridiculous it sounds once it's out of your head. Because every time you choose a calmer version of events, you train yourself to see the world as it is, not as your fear paints it. And in that moment, you start shielding your mind so that nothing and no one can ever write your story for you. So, my friend, every time you change the story you tell yourself, you become the author of your piece and take another step toward the secret of never losing your calm again, with anything or anyone. 5. Expect nothing from anyone. There's something stealing your peace and you don't even see it. It's not what people do. It's what you expected them to do. That invisible gap between what you imagined and what actually happened is where your calm slips away again and again. Because expecting others to react with your same level of intensity, commitment, or worldview is a quiet way to suffer. It's like planting expectations in someone else's soil and then being surprised when nothing grows. And you do it all the time without even realizing it. You put effort into planning something special for someone. You give your time, your attention, your care. And when that person responds with indifference, when they don't even seem to notice what you did, something inside you breaks. Not because of what they did, but because of what they didn't do. Because of the script you wrote in your head that they never got to read. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Cato the Younger, a symbol of integrity and discipline, stood for Rome and its principles, even when everyone else had already surrendered to corruption. But the most interesting thing isn't that he was principled, it's that he never expected others to be. He acted out of conviction, not for praise. He didn't waste energy waiting for gratitude. He kept that energy for himself, because he knew that his virtue didn't depend on anyone's applause. Marcus Aurelius wrote it without sugarcoating it. Expect people to act according to their nature, not according to your will. And that phrase should be tattooed in the mind of anyone who's constantly frustrated with others, because everyone gives what they can, from their own level of clarity, fear, or confusion. Expecting more is like yelling at the ocean to stay still. Now listen to this, because it's key. Psychotherapist Terry Cole explains it with a devastating metaphor. She says that when you have expectations of others, it's like directing a movie in your head. You write the script, you cast the roles, you set the stage, you rehearse every line, but you never gave the script to the actors. So they walk on set, improvise, say whatever they want, act based on their version of the story, and you get upset because they didn't follow your script. But how could they? Did they sign a contract? Did they even audition? There's the problem. Your expectations are not agreements. Even if you repeat them 1,000 times in your mind, no one else heard them. It's like writing a letter, putting it in an envelope and never sending it, then getting angry because nobody read it. Absurd, right? But that's how so many of us live. So what do you do when people don't respond the way you expected? When that friend you always support is never there when you need them? When your partner doesn't value the effort you make? When your kids don't acknowledge the sacrifices you've made for them? The first step is to ask yourself, with brutal honesty, did I clearly communicate what I needed, or did I just assume they knew? Because most of the time, we expect people to read our minds. And when they don't, we feel betrayed. But no one can give you what they don't know you need. Let this sink in. If you didn't say it, it's not fair to hold it against them. Then shift your focus. Instead of waiting for others to recognize you, recognize yourself. Didn't get a thank you? Thank yourself. Well done. I did what I wanted to do because it mattered to me, not because I wanted something in return. That small act of self-validation is revolutionary, because it puts the power back in your hands. It reminds you that your worth doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. And now comes the hardest part. Accept that every person has their own level of awareness, their own capacity to give. Not everyone can give what you give. not because they're bad, simply because they're not where you are, and continuing to expect them to change is like waiting for an apple tree to grow oranges. It's not going to happen. The Stoics knew this. That's why they focused so much on only controlling what's within your reach, your effort, your intention, your attitude. But the response from others, their gratitude, their reciprocity, that's not yours, and clinging to it only ties you to unnecessary suffering. Marcus Aurelius lived this firsthand, emperor of Rome, surrounded by traitors and flatterers. Do you think he expected loyalty from everyone? Number. He expected the worst from many, but still acted with integrity. Not because they deserved it, but because he had decided who he wanted to be, regardless of how others acted. So what do you do with those expectations that are eating away at you? Let them go. Not because people don't deserve your effort, but because your peace can't depend on whether or not they rise to meet it. Do what you do because it aligns with who you are, not because you're waiting for something in return. And when you feel that sting of disappointment rising, ask yourself, is this personal or just human? Because most of the time, when someone doesn't meet your expectations, it's not because they want to hurt you. It's because they're limited by their own humanity, their exhaustion, their selfishness, their lack of awareness. That doesn't excuse everything, but it helps you stop taking it personally. It helps you understand that you're not the problem. You just expected the other person to be a version of you, and they're not. They never will be. So stop directing mental movies where everyone plays the role you assigned them. Stop handing out scripts no one asked for, and start living your life without tying your peace to what others do or don't do. Because, my friend, every time you let go of an unfair expectation, you reclaim a piece of your peace. And every time you stop expecting others to fill you, you start filling yourself. And right there, in that moment, you move closer to the secret of never losing your calm again, with nothing and with no one. 6. Your body obeys when you decide to take charge. Have you ever felt like your body betrays you at the worst possible moment? Like your mind is saying, relax, it's all good, but your hands are sweating, your voice is shaking, and your legs turn to jelly. As if your brain and your body were living on two different planets not speaking to each other. And the most frustrating part is, you really do try to calm down. You tell yourself over and over to chill, but the more you try, the worse it gets. It's like your own body is rebelling against you right when you need it the most. But let me tell you something you might not have heard explained clearly. Your body isn't betraying you, it's protecting you. The problem is it doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a perceived one. It can't tell the difference between being chased by a lion and having an awkward meeting at the office. To your body, it's all danger, and it reacts accordingly. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus, who had been a slave before becoming a philosopher, knew better than anyone what it meant to lose control over your own body. Chains, beatings, constant fear. But he learned something crucial, that even if he couldn't control what was done to him, he could control how his body responded from within. He taught that you must first master what others see, then master what only you see. Because when your body stops giving away your inner chaos, your mind starts to believe in your calm. Your body, my friend, is like a hypersensitive alarm system. It picks up anything it thinks is a threat and goes into full alert. Heart racing, shallow breathing, tight muscles, cold sweat. It's your body's way of saying, get ready to run or fight. The problem? That system was built for tigers and battlefields, not for PowerPoint presentations or difficult conversations with your boss. So what do you do when your body is firing off alarms and you need to stay calm? First, understand that you can't shut it down by yelling at yourself internally. Telling yourself calm down over and over doesn't help. It just creates more tension. It's like trying to put out a fire by blowing on it too hard. You only feed the flames. What does work is speaking your body's language. And your body doesn't speak thoughts. It speaks through movement. That's why the Stoics were so insistent on posture, breath, and physical gestures. Because they knew that when you change the outside, the inside starts to follow. Think about someone who makes you nervous just by walking into the room. That intimidating boss. That family member who always makes you feel small. The moment you see them, your body tenses, shoulders rise, jaw clenches, hands close into fists. And your mind, seeing all those signals, decides, we're under attack. But if, in that moment, you deliberately drop your shoulders, open your hands, release your jaw, your brain gets a different message. Wait, if this is danger, why is the body so relaxed? And it starts to question itself. And that little bit of doubt is enough for the alarm to start lowering. Now listen to this, because it's powerful. Ginny Thrasher, only 19 years old, was competing in the Rio Olympics with a gold medal on the line. Thousands of eyes on her, cameras everywhere, total silence. And her body did exactly what yours would do. Shaking, sweating, screaming at her to run. But she did something different. She closed her eyes for a moment and began to breathe. Slowly, very slowly. And as she did, she repeated to herself, "There's no lion here. There's no lion here." With each inhale, she reminded her body she wasn't in danger. With each exhale, she let go of a bit more tension. She didn't try to erase her fear. She just put a leash on it. She guided it. Instead of letting her body drag her around, she took it by the hand. And when she pulled the trigger, the shot was perfect. Gold medal. And when they asked how she managed it, she said something that should be taught in schools. It wasn't talent. It was learning how to calm my breath when everything in me wanted to run. That's what you can do too, my friend. Because this isn't about being an Olympian or a Zen monk. It's about understanding that your body reacts to very specific signals. And if you give it the right ones, it will listen. So how do you speak to your body in its own language? Start with your breath. But not just any breathing, conscious, slow, deep breathing. Put your hand on your chest and feel it rise and fall. Inhale to the count of 4. Hold for 2 seconds. Exhale to the count of 6. Repeat. You'll see. Within a minute, your heart rate starts to slow. It's not magic. It's physiology. Then relax whatever is tense. Your shoulders, almost always tight, your jaw. You probably don't even realize it's clenched. Your hands, often balled into fists without you noticing. Open all of it. Let it go like you're dropping a heavy backpack. And if you can, move. A light stretch, a 2-minute walk, even shaking out your hands like you're flicking off water. That motion tells your brain, we're okay. If there were danger, we wouldn't be moving so casually. Because the Stoics knew it well. The body follows the one who leads it with strength. If you let it drag you, it'll pull you straight into chaos. But if you take the reins, if you act with clear physical intention, it obeys. Not instantly, but it does obey. Marcus Aurelius lived it every day, with the weight of an empire on his back, surrounded by betrayals, wars, and disease. His body felt stress just like yours, but he learned not to be ruled by his sensations. He learned that he could feel fear and still act with calm, that his heart could race, and he could still make clear decisions. So, my friend, the next time you feel like your body is spiraling out of control, remember, there is no lion. There's just an outdated alarm system that needs to be reminded where it is. And when you manage to calm it, when you feel control returning, you'll know you've taken another step closer to that secret of never losing your calm again, with nothing and with no one. 7. Leave the place where you can't grow. Have you ever felt like a place just shrinks you? That no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you smile or work, something in that environment snuffs you out inside? Picture it. Every morning you walk into that office where the air already feels cold before you even arrive. The blinds half closed, the smell of stale coffee, keyboards clattering like crickets in the night. No one greets you. No one looks up when you walk in. If you finally dare to offer an idea during the meeting, they glance at each other like you just said something crazy. At first you tell yourself, it's nothing. It's just work. I can handle it. But each day gets heavier. One day you show up 5 minutes late. The next you don't even bother with breakfast. By the third, you've got a knot in your stomach before you even open the door. And deep down, you know it. This isn't your place. Because, my friend, staying where you can't flourish is like trying to plant a lemon tree in the desert. You can water it, love it, whisper sweet things to it. But if the soil is barren, it will never grow. And it's not the tree's fault, or yours. There's just no water there. If any Stoic knew this well, it was Musonius Rufus, Epictetus's teacher. He was exiled to a rocky, lonely island just for daring to speak the truth to the emperor. Most would have fallen into despair, but not him. Musonius took the stones from that island, planted a garden with his own hands, and began teaching philosophy to the fishermen. He spoke to them about virtue while helping them mend their nets. And when, years later, they finally let him return to Rome, he said something that still resonates. The soul does not flourish where the earth is barren. That's the key. It's not about pride or weakness. It's just as Epictetus said, if something weakens your soul, walk away. Not because you're a coward, but because no one else will protect your center if you don't. Staying in a place where your peace dies a little every day isn't bravery. It's forgetting yourself. And yes, I know what you're thinking, that it's not always so easy. There are bills, responsibilities, commitments, but you don't always have to leave immediately. Sometimes it's enough to set boundaries, to carve out just a little space to breathe, to look around and say, I wasn't born to shrink. So let's make it concrete. First, identify at least one environment that doesn't let you grow. Is it that group of friends who always make you feel smaller? Is it that office where you feel a knot in your stomach as soon as you walk in? Or is it your own home with that unspoken tension you can't even explain? Don't sugarcoat it with excuses. Just say, I'm not myself here. Then ask yourself, how do you feel on the days you're not there? Have you noticed that you breathe better when you skip that office? That you laugh more when you don't see those friends? That your body relaxes when you're away from home? That feeling, my friend, doesn't lie. That's your compass, pointing to what you truly need. Now test it. One day, leave work early and go for a walk without checking your phone. Another day, say no to hanging out with them and stay home doing something just for you. Put on music, cook something, take a long shower. Do you feel lighter? There's your answer. Then, make the decision. Is it time to leave, or is it enough to set a boundary? If you choose to leave, do it without asking permission. If you choose to stay, make it clear how far others can go. Do they criticize you? End the conversation. Do they blame you? Hand the responsibility back. No one will do it for you. And finally, create your refuge. What's that place that restores your calm? That park where no one bothers you? That cafe where you smile at the barista? Your room, arranged just how you like it? Go there. Stay there. Fill yourself with it. Because in the end, my friend, the secret to never losing your calm again, with anything or anyone, also lies in recognizing when a place no longer gives you space to grow, and having the courage to leave before your soul withers. 8. Return to what's essential. Do you know one of the most subtle ways to lose your peace? It's not stress, it's not chaos, it's accumulation. That mountain of tiny, seemingly insignificant things you keep accepting without realizing it. Until one day you wake up exhausted without having done anything that actually matters. Tell me this. How many times have you reached the end of the day with the feeling that you didn't stop for a second, but still didn't do anything for yourself? How many times have you been busy all day but never really present in what truly matters? Because there's a huge difference between being busy and being focused. Between filling your day with activity and filling it with purpose. And most people live in the first, without realizing they're sacrificing the second. Your day becomes an endless list of favors, requests, other people's emergencies, the neighbor who needs help with something, the coworker who asks for just a second of your time, the family member who always has a crisis, and you say yes, again and again. Because saying no feels selfish. Because you were taught that being a good person means being available to everyone. But no one ever taught you that being available to everyone means being unavailable to yourself. that filling your life with everyone else's urgencies empties it of what's essential to you. The Stoics knew this. Musonius Rufus, Epictetus's teacher, spent his final years in the countryside. He lived with the bare minimum, grew his own food, taught philosophy outdoors. And when someone asked why he'd chosen such a simple life, he said something that should be etched in the mind of anyone feeling overwhelmed. What's essential never weighs you down. While others chased possessions, commitments, and obligations, he slept peacefully, knowing his calm didn't depend on anything superficial. He'd learned something most people never do, that peace isn't found by adding more, but by removing everything that doesn't matter. Seneca said it clearly. Happiness lies in focusing on what's important, because if you don't choose your priorities, the world will choose them for you. And the world, my friend, has no interest in your happiness. The world just wants you to keep producing, keep responding, keep being available. Greg McKeown, author of Essentialism, learned this the hard way. He spent years saying yes to everything, every request, every favor, every commitment, until one day he collapsed, literally. He ended up in the hospital from total burnout. And there, in that hospital bed, he realized something critical. Not doing the unnecessary isn't laziness, it's survival, it's strategy. It's the only way to protect what truly matters, because no one is going to protect your peace for you. No one's going to say, "Hey, I think you've done enough today, go rest." On the contrary, people will keep asking, keep expecting, keep assuming you have endless time and infinite energy. So what do you do when your life feels like an endless checklist of other people's needs? First, do a brutal audit of your time. Take a piece of paper and write down everything you did yesterday, from the moment you woke up to the moment you went to bed. Then highlight only 3 things that truly mattered. Just 3. The ones that made you feel good, the ones that brought you closer to who you want to be, the ones that gave you peace. You'll notice something uncomfortable. Most of your day was spent on things that don't matter to you. Next, identify your automatic yeses. Those moments when you say yes without thinking. Because it's easier. Because you don't want to seem rude. Because you're afraid of conflict. Then decide, consciously, that the next time you'll say no. No elaborate excuses, no made-up reasons, just, "I can't." And if they insist, you repeat, "Really, I can't." At first it'll feel strange, uncomfortable, like you're being selfish. But you're not. You're being intentional. You're choosing to protect your energy instead of giving it away to anyone who asks for it. And something crucial, give yourself time for nothing. Yes, nothing. 1 hour a day where you do absolutely nothing productive. You don't answer messages. You don't help anyone. You don't meet any expectations. You just are. Read, walk. Sit in silence. Whatever, but it's your time. Non-negotiable. Because the world has convinced you that every minute must be productive, that you always have to be doing something. But the Stoics knew that rest isn't laziness. It's a recharge. It's how your body and mind prepare for what really matters. Marcus Aurelius, with the weight of an empire on his shoulders, made sure to carve out moments of solitude, moments when no one could ask him for anything, when he could think, reflect, return to himself, because he knew that if he didn't protect that time, the empire would devour him alive. And you don't have an empire, but you do have a life. And that life is being devoured minute by commitments you never truly chose. So ask yourself, with brutal honesty, what are you carrying that's not essential? What commitments could you drop without losing anything important? What yeses could become nos without the world falling apart? Because I promise you, the world won't fall apart. It'll keep turning. People will find other ways to solve their problems. And you'll get back something you forgot you had. Your time, your energy, your peace. The Stoics didn't accumulate. They simplified. They didn't pile on more obligations. They stripped away everything that wasn't essential. Because they understood that freedom isn't in having more options. It's in needing fewer things. And every time you choose to hold on only to what's essential, every time you protect your time like it's your life, You're telling the world, I'm in charge here. My peace is not up for negotiation. My time is not for sale. And in that moment, you begin to reclaim something most people have lost, the feeling that you own your life again, and you take one more step toward that secret of never losing your calm, with nothing and with no one. 9. See the weight others carry. Have you ever stopped to consider what that person yelling at you might be carrying? Have you asked yourself what invisible battle is being fought by the one who shoves past you without apologizing or snaps at you for no reason? What if, instead of reacting instantly, you could see, just for a moment, the backpack full of stones they're dragging behind them? Because that, my friend, changes everything. Most of the time, we react as if every rude gesture is a personal attack, as if that person woke up in the morning with a plan to ruin your day specifically. But the truth is much simpler and far less dramatic. Hardly anyone is thinking about you as much as you think they are. Most people are too busy fighting their own private hell, and I don't say this to justify rudeness or to suggest you should become someone's emotional doormat. I say it because understanding this gives you an incredible advantage. It allows you not to take things personally. It lets you look past the behavior and ask what might be behind it. Think about that barista who hands you your coffee with a scowl and barely a word. Your first instinct is to be annoyed, maybe even skip the tip. But if you look up and notice the red eyes, the trembling hands, the sleepless face, something shifts inside you. Maybe they spent the night in the hospital with their father. Maybe they just got terrible news. Maybe their backpack weighs 3 times more than yours, and they just don't have the energy left to smile. That doesn't mean cold coffee is okay. It just means your reaction can be different. More human, more compassionate, more aware. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Viktor Frankl, a Jewish doctor imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp, lived through hell on earth. And yet, when a guard insulted him while he coughed blood and trembled from the cold, he didn't respond with hatred. He wrote in his journal something that should be carved in stone. Perhaps, at this moment, I am less of a prisoner than he is. Because he saw what most people can't. That guard was chained to his hatred, trapped in his cruelty, unable to escape. While Frankl, despite everything, was still master of his own mind. And centuries before, Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, lived the same lesson. He, who held absolute power, who could have anyone executed at will, wrote a private reflection with a brutal question. If I had lived his same life, thought his same thoughts, suffered his same pain, would I act any differently? That question wasn't to excuse others. It was to remind himself that everyone carries a story you don't know. That behind every rude gesture is a life filled with pain, fear, or confusion. And that reacting with anger only pulls you into the same hole the other person's already drowning in. Marcus Aurelius knew his peace couldn't depend on how others acted. That if he lost his calm every time someone betrayed, criticized, or attacked him, he'd spend his life handing his serenity to strangers. And he refused to do that. He held his center, even when the empire around him was chaos. And if he, with all the weight of an empire and the hatred of enemies, could pause and ask what burden the other might be carrying, what excuse do you have not to try? So, what do you do when someone treats you badly for no apparent reason? When a coworker snaps at you? When a driver yells from their window? When a family member throws a hurtful comment at you? Start with a simple mental exercise. Imagine that person dragging an old suitcase with broken wheels, a suitcase full of problems you can't see, and you have 2 options: stand back and watch or climb inside the suitcase with them. Ask yourself honestly, do I really want to get pulled into their drama? Because when you respond with the same intensity, when you take the bait, all you're doing is adding your own weight to that suitcase. And now, both of you are dragging the same mess. Next, take your power back with one simple phrase: this isn't mine. It's not about me. Say it in your mind, even pair it with a small gesture. Turn your head, brush your hands off like you're shaking off dust. It's a physical reminder to your body: this load doesn't belong to me. I can witness someone else's pain without carrying it on my back. And if you want to go one step further, try breaking the tension with something unexpected. A smile, a light gesture, a comment that disarms instead of escalating. If the barista is rude, you could say, "Rough morning, huh?" If someone bumps into you at the gym, try, "We're all coming in strong today, I see." That's not weakness, that's mastery. Because when you respond with calm in the face of hostility, when you return lightness to heaviness, you show something few people ever learn: true control over yourself. The Stoics called it rational sympathy, the ability to understand someone else's suffering without getting swallowed by it, to see that someone is struggling without turning them into your enemy, to stay centered, even when everything around you is falling apart. And no, it's not about being naive or excusing everything. There are limits. There are moments when you should walk away. Some people are so toxic that the healthiest thing you can do is have nothing to do with them. But even in those cases, you can leave without carrying their poison. Because every time you choose not to step into their storm, every time you see their burden without picking it up, you reclaim your peace. You say, "You can be at war with yourself, but I won't join your battle." And that, my friend, is real power. The power to stand steady while someone else crumbles. The power to stay calm when everything around you is chaos. The power to remember that most of the time when someone treats you badly, it's not because you're the problem. It's because they're carrying more than they can bear. And when you truly understand that, when you look past the surface and recognize the invisible weight we all carry, you're already much closer to never losing your calm, with nothing and with no one. 10. Learn to let go in time. They say that in Japan, the monks of Aihaiji Temple began every morning with the same task, sweeping the dry leaves from the garden. It didn't matter if the wind blew hard and new leaves fell as they worked. They did it in silence one after another, until not a leaf was left in sight. One day, one of the youngest monks, exhausted and frustrated, stopped halfway through his task, dropped the broom, and asked the master, "What's the point? Tomorrow it'll just look the same. Even now more leaves are falling. Why bother cleaning?" The master, unfazed, smiled at him and said, "Because someone who doesn't know when to put down the broom also doesn't know when to put down his sorrow. Today the garden is clean. Tomorrow will be another story." And there it is, the lesson so many forget. That monk, just like you, believed calm would come when no more leaves fell, that he'd finally rest when everything was perfect and finished for good. But my friend, that day never comes. The leaves will always fall. But this isn't really about leaves or brooms. It's about you, about everything you keep sweeping, carrying, clinging to, even though it no longer serves any purpose. Do you see it? You're still holding on to what no longer belongs to you. Every night you open Instagram as if it were some altar to the past. You scroll through your ex's pictures over and over, looking for signs, answers, something to bring you peace. You wonder why they blocked you, who they're with, what they did after. And you do it with your heart clenched, eyes burning, mind spinning until 3 in the morning. What you don't see is that this little quiet habit is stealing your sleep and your energy to meet someone new, to look at yourself in the mirror with dignity. Clinging to what no longer serves you is like owning an old car that won't start. Yet you wash it every Sunday, convinced that someday, magically, the engine will roar back to life. Meanwhile, the years pass, and you're still tied to something that no longer takes you anywhere. And look, Seneca didn't have a car, but he understood perfectly the importance of letting go. That's why he said, bluntly, "Much of human suffering comes from resisting the facts." And he was right. You don't suffer because of what happened. You suffer because you won't accept that it already happened. Because you won't accept that the other person chose to leave, that chapter closed, that the leaves will fall again tomorrow no matter how hard you sweep today. That's what keeps you chained. Not what was, but your insistence on holding it. But my friend, it's time you learn to let go, to take back the only thing that matters, your peace. Here's a good challenge for you. Today, identify that rope you're still gripping even though it's cutting into your hands. Don't play dumb, you know what it is. Maybe it's that resentment you've carried for years toward your father, or that silly fight with your brother that nobody's willing to close, or that relationship that neither ends nor begins but still keeps you tied. Write it down on paper clearly, like you're naming a monster. And this isn't about pretending it doesn't hurt or hiding it. No, because that's like sweeping the trash under the rug. Sooner or later it stinks and trips you up. So be honest with yourself. Say it out loud if you have to. Yes, this hurt me. Yes, it's still hard, but it doesn't define me. And today, I start letting it go. Then accept it. There are things you can't change. And time, my friend, is your ally, not your enemy. The Stoics knew this well. That's why Marcus Aurelius said that time smooths even the hardest stones. Give your emotions some space, but don't hand them the keys to your house. And if it helps, add a little humor. When you catch yourself opening Instagram again or texting someone who's already gone, look in the mirror and say, "Here I am again, watering my dead cactus." You'll see even the sadness eases a bit. And remember this, letting go isn't a magic button. It's a process. Be patient with yourself. Treat yourself like you'd treat a good friend who just isn't ready yet. Buy yourself flowers even if you don't feel you deserve them. Give yourself permission to feel without blaming yourself for taking your time. And if it helps, count the days you've managed not to look back and celebrate them as little victories. Here's a secret I don't share with many people, but I'll leave it here for you. The sooner you put down the broom, the sooner you'll feel lighter again. Not because the leaves stop falling, but because you stop fighting them. 11. Everything passes, even this. There's a truth we all know, but few of us truly accept. Nothing lasts forever. Not the pain that feels unbearable today, nor the joy you believe will never end. Everything changes, everything flows, everything transforms. And resisting that is the fastest way to lose your peace. But accepting it, my friend, is liberating, because it means this moment, no matter how hard, is not permanent. This pain that's consuming you will fade. This crisis that's drowning you will one day be just a blurry memory. And it also means the opposite, that the happiness you think will last forever will also pass. That perfect relationship, that dream job, that golden season of life, all of it has an expiration date. And yes, that might sound sad, but in reality, it's what gives each moment its value. Because if something were eternal, you'd stop appreciating it. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote it with brutal clarity. Time is like a river of events rushing everything along. Nothing remains. He, Emperor of Rome with all the power in the world, understood that not even his empire would last, that victories would be forgotten, that betrayals would dissolve, that everything, absolutely everything, would be swept away by time. And that understanding didn't break him. It gave him a deep, grounded calm. Because if nothing is permanent, then there's no point in clinging in desperation or drowning in drama. The only thing that makes sense is to be present, to accept what is, and to trust that everything will move. Hierocles, another Stoic philosopher, spent years locked away in a cold, dark prison, surrounded by screams, despair, and suffering. And when a new prisoner arrived, trembling with fear, he would smile and say, "Time doesn't stop for pain or joy. It flows the same." And slowly, those men would come to understand that even the worst pain fades, that the most intense sorrow loses its grip over time. Think about your own life. Remember that pain you once thought would destroy you? Where is it now? What happened to those sleepless nights, those tears that felt endless? They're gone. They faded. Because time doesn't ask, it doesn't wait. It just moves forward and transforms everything it touches. And the same will happen with what you're going through now. That breakup that's breaking you, that debt that keeps you up at night, that loss that feels impossible to bear. All of that will change shape with time. It might not disappear completely, but it won't carry the same weight. It won't take up every corner of your mind. So why do we keep resisting change? Why do we cling to what's already leaving? Why do we sink into pain as if it's going to last forever? Because we forget that we're part of the river, not the shoreline. The river keeps flowing, and so do we. And when we try to stay still, when we cling to a rock in the middle of the current, all we do is wear ourselves out. The Stoics practice something called memento mori. Remember that you will die. Not to get depressed, but to remember that time is limited, that everything, including your life, is temporary, and that awareness doesn't paralyze you. It sets you free. Because if everything is temporary, then it makes no sense to waste your energy suffering over what you cannot change. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. He reminded himself that even he, with all his power, would die, that his name would be forgotten, that his empire would fall, and that meditation didn't make him a pessimist. It made him aware, present, grateful for what he had while he had it. So how do you apply this when you're in the middle of chaos? When it feels like the pain will never end? When it seems like this crisis is final? First, remind yourself with simple words, "This too shall pass." Don't say it like an empty mantra. Say it with awareness. Say it while looking back at all the times it already passed. All those crises you once thought were permanent and that today you barely remember. That's your reminder that the river is still flowing. Next, mark a future date on your calendar. A month, 6 months, a year, and write, "From here, this won't weigh the same." Not because the problem will magically disappear, but because you will have changed. Time will have given you perspective, and what consumes you today will be just another experience from there. And here's something powerful. Observe change in the small things. Watch how the clouds move, how the light shifts throughout the day, how your body is not the same one you had years ago. Everything is in constant transformation, and so are you. So is your pain. So is your situation. The Stoics never denied suffering. They didn't pretend pain didn't exist. But they understood that clinging to it, resisting change, only made it last longer. And that accepting impermanence is the fastest way to recover your peace. Because when you accept that nothing is eternal, you stop fighting the inevitable. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What do I do with this while it lasts?" And that is a far more powerful question. My friend, here's a secret most people avoid. Neither the good nor the bad lasts forever. And when you truly understand that, when you make it part of how you see the world, you stop clinging in desperation, and you stop sinking into tragedy. You simply flow, like the river, accepting that everything changes, including you, and there, right there, you discover that your calm no longer depends on things staying the same, because you know nothing stays the same, and that's okay. That's the natural order, and you can hold your center, even while everything around you is transforming. And with that, you take one more step toward the secret of never losing your calm, with nothing and with no one. 12. Choose your battles before they choose you. Be honest with yourself. Do you react easily to everything around you? As if every comment, every criticism, every sideways glance deserves your attention? As if you're obligated to respond to every single provocation that crosses your path? But you're not. And the Stoics proved that with the way they lived. There's a massive difference between being alert and being in a constant state of war, between standing up for what matters and fighting over every silly thing someone throws your way. And most people live in that second mode without even realizing it, exhausting themselves in battles they never needed to fight. Cato the Younger, one of the most respected Stoics in Rome, was known for something unusual. He didn't respond to everything. There were politicians who insulted him in the Senate, trying to provoke him, hoping he'd explode so they could discredit him. But he stayed still, silent, looking at them with the kind of calm that disarms more than any clever comeback. And when someone asked why he didn't defend himself, he replied, "Not all words deserve a response. Some only deserve to be forgotten," because Cato understood something most people ignore, that reacting to everything is handing your energy over to those who least deserve it. That every time you take the bait, you're letting someone else control your time, your focus, your peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote it with brutal clarity. You have power over your mind, not external events. Realize this, and you will find strength, and part of that power is consciously deciding what's worth responding to and what isn't. Because not everything deserves your energy, not everything deserves your time, and definitely, not everything deserves your peace. So how do you choose your battles before you're dragged into all of them? The first step is to pause and ask yourself, will this matter tomorrow? Not in a week, not in a month, tomorrow. Because if the answer is no, then you already know it's not worth it. That rude comment on social media, that passive-aggressive remark from your brother-in-law at dinner, that driver who cut you off and yelled, none of that will matter tomorrow. So why let it steal your peace today? Next, learn to recognize when someone is trying to provoke you on purpose. Because some people don't want to solve anything. They just want to pull you into their chaos. And when you see that, your best response isn't to get in the ring. It's not showing up for the fight, just don't engage. And here's something the Stoics practiced constantly. The strategic pause. Don't respond immediately, not even in your head. Let a moment pass, breathe, and ask yourself, if I respond to this, does it bring me closer to the person I want to be, or does it pull me further away? Because every time you react on impulse, you're letting someone else write your story. The Stoics weren't passive. They didn't let people walk all over them, but they were precise, surgically precise about when to act and when to let things slide. Because they understood that true strength doesn't come from fighting every battle. It comes from knowing which ones are worth it. And when you learn to choose your battles, something shifts. You stop feeling exhausted all the time. You stop living in defense mode, and you begin moving through life with a calm that completely unsettles those who expected you to explode. Because, my friend, every time you choose not to step into a pointless fight, you're protecting something far more valuable than your pride. You're protecting your peace. And you're one step closer to that secret of never losing your calm, with nothing and with no one. 13. Accept that you can't avoid pain, but you can avoid suffering. There's something no one wants to hear, but everyone needs to understand. Pain is inevitable. You'll be late and miss an opportunity. Someone will disappoint you. You'll get sick. You'll lose people you love. You'll fail at things that matter to you. You can't avoid that. It's part of being human. But suffering, my friend, that is optional. And that's the difference that changes everything. Pain is what happens to you. Suffering is what you do with it. Pain is the blow. Suffering is reliving that blow over and over again, adding stories to it, dramatizing it, turning it into your identity. The Stoics understood this with brutal clarity. Epictetus, who lived as a slave before becoming a philosopher, put it like this: it's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. In today's language, it's not what happened to you that breaks you. It's the story you tell yourself about what happened. Think about it. 2 people lose their job on the same day. One collapses, tells themselves, I'm a failure. I'll never amount to anything. My life is over, and they stay there stuck, replaying the loss for months. The other feels the blow too. It hurts. They allow themselves to feel the frustration, but then they say, this is hard, but it doesn't define me. I can find something else. I can reinvent myself. Both felt the pain, but only one chose the suffering. And that, my friend, is what makes the difference between staying trapped in chaos or reclaiming your calm. Marcus Aurelius lived this constantly. As emperor of Rome, he lost children. He faced betrayals. He watched his empire fall apart. The pain was real. But in his meditations, he wrote something that should be carved in stone. You can cut out my tongue, but you can't stop my mind from being free. Because he understood that even though he couldn't avoid pain, he could choose not to drown in it. So how do you stop turning every pain into lifelong suffering? First, let yourself feel. Don't repress. Don't pretend it doesn't hurt. Don't tell yourself you're weak for feeling it. Feel it. Cry if you need to cry. Scream if you need to scream, because pain that doesn't get expressed gets stuck and turns into chronic suffering. Then, set a time limit. It's okay to feel the hit, but it's not okay to live there forever. Give yourself a window, a day, a week, whatever you need. But draw the line, because if you don't, the suffering becomes your new normal, and you start to identify with it. I'm someone this happened to turns into I am what happened to me. And here's something crucial. Separate the facts from the story. The fact is, I lost my job. The story is, I'm a failure. The fact is, my partner left me. The story is, I'll never find love again. When you manage to separate the two, you realize the fact hurts, but it's the story that destroys you. And unlike the facts, you can change the story. The Stoics practiced this constantly. They asked themselves, what here is real and what is just my interpretation? Because most suffering doesn't come from what happened. It comes from what we add on top of it. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps, expressed it in a way that cuts deep. Everything can be taken from a person, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. He couldn't escape the pain of being there, but he could choose not to turn it into total despair. And so can you. When something hurts, when life hits you hard, don't punish yourself for feeling it. But don't build an altar to your suffering either. Feel the pain, accept it, then choose, consciously, not to let it become your identity. Because, my friend, every time you manage to separate pain from suffering, every time you accept what happened without sinking into it, you reclaim your power, and you take one step closer to that secret of never losing your calm, with nothing and with no one. 14. The words you tell yourself define who you are. Let me tell you something that embarrassed me for days. It happened several years ago. I was giving an important presentation, nervous, with the whole room watching, and right in the middle of my speech, I confidently used a word that didn't even exist. I didn't realize it at the time, but when I finished and saw a few faces, I knew I'd messed up. That night, on my way home, it started, "You're an idiot. How embarrassing. They'll never take you seriously again." And the worst part wasn't the mistake, it was what came after. That voice wouldn't shut up for days. I'd wake up thinking about it. Everything irritated me. The smallest thing set me off, until I realized something brutal. My worst enemy wasn't in that room. It wasn't in the laughs I imagined. It wasn't even in that minor mistake. My worst enemy was me, inside my own head, tearing myself apart with no mercy. Until a friend, tired of seeing me so unbearable, finally asked what was wrong. I told him, expecting sympathy, but what he said hit me like a slap. If you talk to a friend like that, you wouldn't have any friends. So why do you talk to yourself that way? And that was it. It clicked, because he was right. I'd never speak to someone I love like that. I'd never tell a friend they were worthless for making a mistake. But to myself, I say it all the time without even thinking. My friend, your mind is like a radio that never turns off. And if it's always broadcasting insults, blame, and complaints, don't expect peace. Because no matter how much calm you search for on the outside, if inside you're at war with yourself, you won't find it. And we do this constantly without realizing it. You drop something at the supermarket and mutter, "I'm such a mess." You're late to a meeting and think, "I always screw up." You send an email with a typo and repeat for hours, "I'm the worst." As if you're the first human to make a mistake. As if a single slip defines your whole worth. The Stoics understood this long ago. Epictetus, who was a slave before he was a philosopher, couldn't control what was done to him. He couldn't stop the orders, the humiliation, the beatings, but he could choose what he told himself inside. And he taught something powerful. It's not what happens to you, it's how you react that matters. And he didn't say this from a place of comfort. He said it chained, humiliated, without freedom, but with a free mind, because he had learned not to speak to himself with hatred, because he understood. When your inner judgment is cruel, your calm disappears. You become your own executioner. Marcus Aurelius practiced this too. Emperor of Rome with all the power in the world, yet still human. He made mistakes, he made bad decisions, and when he did, he reminded himself, "You are a man. Men make mistakes. Learn and move on." He didn't punish himself. He didn't spiral. He simply accepted, adjusted, and continued. So how do you change that voice that destroys you from within? First, make it visible. Next time you talk down to yourself, say it out loud, with your name. Maria, you're useless. Carlos, you're a failure. Sounds awful, doesn't it? But that's exactly what you're saying to yourself mentally. Now ask yourself honestly, would you ever say that to your best friend? No, because you'd hurt them deeply. So why say it to yourself? Then, train your mind to see what you did right, not just what went wrong. Every night before bed, write down 3 things you did well that day, even if they're small. I was on time today. I listened to someone with full attention. I took a deep breath before reacting. This teaches your brain you're not just a pile of mistakes. You also succeed. And here's something that works incredibly well. Record yourself a short message of encouragement with your own voice. Something simple like, "You're doing fine. It's another day to try again." Use it as your alarm. So instead of waking up to a harsh sound, you wake up to your own voice reminding you that you deserve kindness. Because, my friend, your mind listens to everything you say to yourself. And over time, those words build your identity. If you keep telling yourself you're a failure, you'll act like one. If you keep saying you're incapable, you'll stop trying. But if you start speaking with respect, something changes. You start to believe that you deserve to be okay. The Stoics knew this. That's why they insisted on watching your thoughts. Because thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become your life. So ask yourself now, what destructive phrase do you keep repeating? What mental insult do you launch every time you fall short? And decide, today, that this is the last day you do that. Because you deserve to speak to yourself with the same compassion you'd give to someone you love. And right there, when you change how you talk to yourself, you begin to change who you are. And you move one step closer to that secret of never losing your calm, with nothing and with no one. But there's still one final step, and it's the one most people skip, thinking it's not that important. But without it, everything you've learned so far remains theory. This is what makes it real, what holds it all together. Let's go there. 15. Find peace in the silence you avoid. Have you noticed that the noise begins the moment you open your eyes? The first thing you do is grab your phone. You eat breakfast with the TV on. You walk around the house with headphones in. You work with background music. You drive listening to podcasts. And when you finally lie down, you play a video to fall asleep. You've gone days, maybe weeks, without a single minute of real silence. And it's no accident. Silence makes you uncomfortable, because in silence you meet yourself. And often that's the last person you want to face. But let me tell you something you may have never heard. Constant noise doesn't protect you. It drains you. Every sound, every notification, every screen steals a piece of your peace. And all the while you think you're being productive, that you're moving forward, making the most of your time. But in reality, you're running from yourself. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Seneca used to disappear from palace banquets. He would shut himself in his room while everyone else kept drinking and laughing. And when people asked what he was doing, he'd reply with something few understood. Being alone is not being empty. It's finding oneself, because Seneca understood something vital. Only when you turn off the outer noise can you hear what's inside. Only in silence do you recognize your real thoughts, your true fears, your honest desires. And that's scary. That's why we avoid it. Ryan Holiday, a modern writer on Stoicism, says that at first, silence terrified him. He'd try to write without music and feel restless after 5 minutes. He'd walk without headphones and feel like something was missing. He'd sit in silence, and anxiety would rise like a wave, because his mind, always stimulated, always occupied, was suddenly left with no distractions, and all the thoughts he'd been avoiding began to surface. But over time, that silence stopped being his enemy. It became his refuge, the space where he made his best decisions, where he recharged, where he came back to himself. And you can do the same. You don't need to retreat to a mountain or become a monk. You just need to gift your mind brief moments of silence, moments with no stimuli, where you don't have to respond, produce, or consume anything. Just be. Start with something simple. Eat breakfast without TV, phone, or music. Just you and your food. At first, your hands will twitch. You'll want to grab your phone. You'll resist the urge for just a few seconds, and then give in. But little by little, that time grows, and you begin to notice something strange. Silence isn't uncomfortable. It's restorative. Then, try walking without headphones. Even if it's just 10 minutes, listen to the real sounds of the street, the birds, the cars, your footsteps, your breathing, and notice how your mind, without distractions, starts to organize itself. The tangled thoughts begin to untangle. The worries that seemed enormous begin to shrink, and every night before bed, instead of playing a video or scrolling social media, just sit 2 minutes in silence, doing nothing. Feel your body relax. Notice how your mind, after protesting for a few seconds, begins to quiet. The Stoics practiced this constantly. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by the noise of an empire, forced himself to take moments of solitude, moments where no one could ask him for anything, where he could think without interruption. And in those moments he wrote his meditations, not to publish them, but for himself, to come back to his center. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is clarity. It's the space where your mind stops reacting and starts reflecting, where you stop running and finally decide where you want to go. And yes, at first it will feel strange, like you're wasting time, like you should be doing something. But that discomfort, that's exactly the sign you need this. Because if silence terrifies you, it's because you've been avoiding it for too long. My friend, every minute you give to silence is a minute you reclaim for peace. Because in silence you stop being pushed by the world and start moving from your own center. And one day soon you'll realize something incredible. You no longer need the noise to feel okay. You can be alone with yourself without anxiety. Your calm no longer depends on distractions. And in that moment, you're much closer to never losing your calm, with nothing and with no one. If you've made it this far, if these 15 lessons resonated with you, write in the comments, "I am the master of my calm." That way, I'll know who understands that peace is not begged for, it's built, and that the secret to never losing your calm, with nothing and no one, is already within you. That tells me you're part of this community that doesn't give up. Subscribe and turn on the bell so we can walk this path of wisdom together. You've got more videos on screen waiting for you, because every step counts. Click now, and let's keep learning together.